Hi there, dear guys and girls. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Petra for all the new subscribers. Today I want to share a few parts of an email that I received from one of the viewers, Jennifer. I don't know if I can use your full name, Jennifer, so I'll just stick to your first name. The email goes, Dear Petra, I've recently discovered your videos on YouTube and I'm enjoying them very much. I'm an only child and just watched your Being an Only Child with a Narcissistic Parent video. Can you please make a video on having a healthy relationship with a narcissistic parent as an adult? I live in a different state than my father, and he has pretty much put all the responsibility on me to keep our relationship going. Even though I suffer with chronic illness, depression, and anxiety, all of which he knows about. When we talk, he lays on the guilt trips, talks about how he wants to see me, but when we see each other, he's critical, telling me how I have gained weight, have Oprah arms, and it feels like I'm under a microscope the whole time. I feel compassion for him as his mother passed when he was a child and only knew abuse with my grandparents. Also, I am a Christian, and although I do not believe in tolerating abuse in any way, cutting off my dad is what my mother did to me. How would I be any better than her by doing the same to him? My thoughts are that I would like to keep a relationship, although limited, with my dad. How do I do low contact relationship with a narcissistic family member? How do I respond when they offer criticism, ways to control your own emotions when they try to guilt trip, or just how to handle someone who you still want in your life, albeit limited? So thank you, Jennifer, for your email. I'm sure this is a topic that many of you have considered. Is where you have this family member, or it could even be a co-worker, someone who you have to often deal with. You don't want to cut off the relationship for whatever reason, and you need ways to cope. So I'm sure we have, all been through this, where you just try and fathom out how to do this. I myself do not have experience with this because well, my husband, of course, with his narcissistic mother, he learned how to cope with her by becoming indifferent. And I remember when we first started out in our relationship, he was I felt at the time, very harsh towards his mother, sometimes even cruel. He would be snappy with her. He would make not so loving comments if she, if she said something and he reacted to that. It would not be very kind or loving. What he did maintain was doing her groceries, as I've said in a previous video, where we would go every Saturday and do her groceries for her, get her whatever she needed, sit and have a coffee, chat a bit, and then leave. So that was the very limited time. And back then, I did not know what narcissism was. I did not understand it. All I saw as an outsider was a son being, well, I would say quite rude to his mother. And that did not sit well with me because, of course, that is not the way I was raised. I was raised to always have respect for your elders, for your parents. Now I get it, of course, when you have been raised by a narcissistic parent, you lose respect for them. You cannot, at least most of you cannot, converse with them in a healthy way, which is very understandable. So I think, just to touch on a few points, if you feel that you don't want to or you cannot break contact with a narcissistic family member, then it is very important to safeguard yourself, to keep your own peace of mind, to stand within yourself, stand strong within yourself, so that you will feel confident enough to deal with this sort of, with this very destructive energy. So, excuse me, I would say setting boundaries would be a first to do. You need to set yourself healthy boundaries. So if you want that limited contact, you know, if in your case, Jennifer, if your father, because you live in different states, if he suggests that he comes for a weekend to stay with you, I would, you know, if I were you, I would set a boundary there and say, no, Dad, not for a whole weekend. We can do a day or a day and a half, but a weekend is just, no, that is not what I'm willing to do. And when you set a healthy boundary for yourself, make sure that the narcissistic family member, parent, is aware of the consequences involved. So you have to have a deal breaker. You know, when someone oversteps your boundary, there you have to get into place a very clear deal breaker for yourself and converse this with them, you know, communicate this to them, that if they break that boundary, if they overstay their welcome, if they are critical, if they are just downright nasty, then you have to let them know beforehand that there are consequences involved there. If they treat you in a certain way, a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that minimizes you, that eats away at your self-confidence, then it is okay to say, this is the consequence. And if you overstep that boundary, consequences will be reinforced. So whatever that might look like to you. For example, Jennifer, if your father was to stay longer than a day or a day and a half in your home, you could say, Dad, you are now overstepping a boundary. I personally am going to take you to the airport and put you back on the plane, because I did say beforehand that I could only do a day or a day and a half. So set a healthy boundary, state the consequences if they overstep that boundary, and stick to that, reinforce it as soon as they overstep the boundary. Another thing is knowing your value, because when you know your value, you stop defending yourself. This is also something that Jennifer wrote in her email. How can I deal with the criticism? How do I defend myself? So when you are strong within yourself, you know who you are, you know you are speaking your truth, then there is no reason to defend yourself in this case. Because defending yourself means in this case, in the case of Jennifer, and in the case of yours, those of you who are watching, defending yourself means that you are made to feel shame or guilt about yourself or about something you have done. So when we feel that shame and that guilt, the very normal reaction is to defend ourselves, to say, that is not the way it is, this is the way it is. You know, so this is a process that you have to go through of dealing with the shame and dealing with the guilt. Because once you have dealt with that, then you are strong within yourself. Then you know what you bring to the table. You know what your morals and your values are. And when you have that in place for yourself, when you are clear on that, then there is no need for you to defend yourself. So you can have this narcissistic person, you know, going on at you, criticizing you, bringing you down. If you stand firm, that's all they can do. They can just talk and talk and talk, and it will have no effect on you. Walk away. Remove yourself from the situation. If someone is criticizing you and just, you know, going on at you and trying to bring you down the whole time, you can remove yourself from that situation. You can walk out of the room. You can turn your back on that person. There is no need for you to defend yourself. And when you leave the room, you can then compose yourself. Because, you know, that is oftentimes what happens, is that we become all flustered and we think of ways to get back at them. We blurt out defenses. We get very angry in some cases. In other cases, we might start to cry. These are all the emotions that are coming up. So as we all know with a narcissist, this is what they feed on. As soon as you show them that you are angry or that you are sad or that you are hurting by what they have said to you, this is fuel for them. And they love seeing you in this state. So it is good to leave the room and compose yourself. And another thing is using humor. You know, if you have a great sense of humor, or if you have a little fragment of humor, it is good to use that as a defense. So in the case of Jennifer's dad, where he says to her, "You have Oprah arms," and I think he's meaning the flab, you know, that a lot of women and men have. I don't know, I think it's pretty charming. So when he says to you, "You have Oprah arms," you can respond by using humor. So you could, for example, say, "Thank you, Dad. I love powerful women." You could do that. Just say thank you and smile about it, laugh about it, because that will disarm him straight away. He will not have a response to that. You know, he might probably even laugh himself about it. So, you know, when you're feeling down by a put down, just force yourself into a smile and have something to say about that, something funny. Because as soon as you smile, you will feel differently. It just changes your whole demeanor. So another way of, for example, when he says to you, "You have put on weight," or you have Oprah arms, you could also say, "Goodness, Dad." And he'll probably say, What? You are really getting grey." That is, if your father's not turned grey already, Jennifer. "You are really getting grey, Dad. I think your hair needs a remodeling. Shall I nip down to the shop and get you some hair dye?" You know, that is going to disarm him straight away. He will not be able to retaliate to that straight away. It's using humor. You know, I think in many cases, of course not in all cases, because some of the abuse that we endure from narcissists is horrific. But I think in some cases it is good to keep certain situations lighthearted, laugh about it, use that sense of humor. It will make you feel better, and it will disarm the person who is verbally abusing you at that point. So, you know, again, it's very important. Set your boundaries. Ask yourself the question as well. When you find that you don't really have to deal with this narcissistic person in your life, when you do have the possibility, the opportunity to leave that relationship, and you choose to stay and to take on that abuse and ask the question of how to deal with that kind of abuse, it is very good and very important to ask yourself why you are putting yourself in this situation. Because if there is no reason for you to stay in the relationship, then why are you still staying? You know, that is a good question to ask yourself. Why am I staying? What are the benefits of staying in a toxic relationship? And just to come back to a bit of a piece of your email, Jennifer, where you write, "I feel compassion for him," for your father, "as his mother passed when he was a child and only knew abuse with my grandparents. Also, I am a Christian, and although I do not believe in tolerating abuse in any way, cutting off my dad is what my mother did to me. How would I be any better than her by doing the same to him?" So, Jennifer, let me pose this question to you. Is there any chance that you are trying to make up for your mother's neglect in your childhood by mothering your own father? Is there any chance of that? And by doing this, if this is true in your case, by doing this, you are neglecting your own principles and your own values. So it is important to get real with yourself, to ask yourself that question as well. What part of me still needs to be healed is what you can ask yourself. What part of the anguish of being abandoned and neglected by your own mother do you still need to heal? Because once you have healed that wound, then you will find you will not feel the urge to mother someone else in order to numb that sense of abandonment that you have in you, which is very real. I don't know your whole story, but I think gathering from your email is that you grew up a motherless daughter. And that is utter anguish. That is a total rejection for a child. So if you need to heal that part in yourself, then you will realize once you've healed it, that you will not feel the guilt and the shame anymore, because your mum left you. That is not your fault. That says everything about her, and it says very little about you, but you are still hurting from that. So is there any chance that you're trying to make up for this by mothering your father? I will get back to you in an email, Jennifer. Thank you for sharing such personal things with me and with all of us. And I'm sure that many people can benefit from hearing your story as they are going through the same thing. Set your boundaries, people. Ask yourself those very important questions. Have that very difficult conversation with yourself about the reasons why you are subjecting yourself to such toxicity. Thank you again for watching, and I hope this has answered your question, Jennifer. Speak to you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.